January 26, 1959. March of Dimes fundraiser. Times Square, New York City. Peter Tripp, a well-known radio host at WMGM New York, began broadcasting live from a glass booth downtown. For the next 8 days and 9 hours, 201 hours straight, he remained awake. Sleep researchers and doctors documented everything, monitoring him in shifts, recording every change. The collapse began after about 100 hours. Tripp could no longer solve simple math problems. He couldn't recite the alphabet. After 120 hours, he began hallucinating. When he opened his dresser to get some clothes, he saw flames erupting from inside. He felt as if the scientists observing him were conspiring to frame him for a crime. By the 8th day, Peter Tripp could no longer distinguish his hallucinations from reality. He dreamed while awake. After the experiment ended, Tripp fell into a depression that lasted for over 3 months. His personal life was ruined. His career was in tatters. Peter Tripp hadn't slept for only 8 days. You, dear viewer, likely haven't experienced a similar situation. But if you sleep less than 6 hours, dangerous processes can occur unnoticed in your body, night after night. These are the same processes that ruined Peter's life. Just slower. You've probably told yourself a lie more than once: I'll get enough sleep on the weekends. Perhaps you're getting 5 hours of sleep, sincerely believing you've intelligently adapted to your personal pace. You feel fine, moving through the day peacefully. But what science tells us is deeply troubling. There's no such thing as catch-up sleep. A landmark 2019 discovery showed that every night, if you sleep less than 6 hours, your brain accumulates toxic waste that can't be fully eliminated, even after you restore normal sleep. And it doesn't take weeks for your body to start experiencing problems. It all starts on the very first night. Hour by hour. System by system. Your body begins to break down. Today, we'll take a look inside the human body to understand what's happening while you lie in bed, convinced 5 hours is enough. We'll trace the processes occurring in your brain, hormones, immune system, metabolism, and cardiovascular system over 7 consecutive nights of short sleep. Some facts may surprise you, but the research speaks for itself. If you watch this video to the end, you'll discover the exact protocol scientists recommend for repairing damage and restoring optimal sleep structure. When you sleep less than 6 hours, you lose a specific stage of sleep essential for your brain to function properly. This is the stage of deep, slow-wave sleep, the stage when the brain activates a system called the glymphatic system. Think of it like a dishwasher your brain runs every night. During deep sleep, brain cells shrink by up to 60%, opening channels that allow cerebrospinal fluid to enter the brain and flush out metabolic waste. The most dangerous of these waste products is a protein called beta-amyloid. Beta-amyloid is the same toxic plaque that accumulates in the brains of Alzheimer's patients. During a full night of sleep, the dishwasher runs at full capacity. On the first night of less than 6 hours of sleep, the cycle stops. The dishes don't wash. Measurable amounts of beta-amyloid remain. And it begins to accumulate. Simultaneously, your prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational decision-making, impulse control, and emotional regulation, begins to function impaired after even one shortened night. A study at the University of Pennsylvania tracked the cognitive abilities of sleep-deprived people. After one night of less than 6 hours, reaction time and decision-making decreased to levels consistent with alcohol intoxication. Essentially, you're drunk, but you don't feel drunk. That's the danger. Sleep deprivation impairs your ability to accurately assess your own state. December 28, 1963. San Diego, California. 17-year-old Randy Gardner decided to stay awake as long as possible, a science fair project, something to tell his friends about. Stanford sleep researcher Dr. William Dement flew to San Diego specifically to observe what happened next. By the second day, Gardner's eyes couldn't focus properly. By the third day, he could no longer recognize objects by touch. Mood swings followed. Then memory lapses. Then paranoia. On January 8, 1964, after exactly 264 hours and 25 minutes without sleep, Randy Gardner set a new Guinness World Record. He hadn't slept for 11 consecutive days. Then he fell asleep. He woke up 14 hours later. He seemed to have recovered and returned to normal life. But in 2017, more than 50 years later, Gardner told NPR what really happened. Around 2007, he said, he stopped sleeping. He'd lie in bed for 5 or 6 hours, sleep maybe 15 minutes, and wake up again. I was completely devastated, he told an interviewer. Gardner believed his teenage experiment had permanently damaged his brain's ability to regulate sleep. One research project. Lifelong consequences. This is precisely what research confirms. Acute sleep deprivation doesn't just go away. It leaves a mark. Now we've come to the point where we'll learn what actually happens inside the body on the second night without adequate sleep. By the second night, the immune system begins to retreat. Researchers at the University of California, San Francisco found that people who slept less than 6 hours were 4 times more likely to develop a cold when exposed to rhinovirus than those who slept 7 or more hours. 4 times more likely. In just 2 nights. Here's the mechanism. Your body produces cytokines during sleep, proteins that promote sleep while also fighting infection and inflammation. When sleep is interrupted, cytokine production plummets. Your first line of biological defense begins to collapse. Cortisol levels also rise. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone, operating on a precise circadian rhythm. It's supposed to be lowest at night and peak early in the morning to wake you up. 2 nights of short sleep completely disrupt this rhythm. Cortisol levels begin to remain elevated until evening, keeping your nervous system in a low alert state. Your body perceives sleep deprivation as a threat to survival. And insulin resistance begins to develop unnoticed. Your cells become less sensitive to insulin, making it harder to regulate blood sugar. You've only lost 2 nights of sleep. And your metabolism is already shifting in the wrong direction. Randy Gardner's story unfolded over 11 days under controlled conditions, scientists present, recordings taken. But most cases of sleep deprivation don't happen in a lab. They happen in the living room. With friends. With the TV on. June 8, 2012. Changsha, Hunan Province, China. A 26-year-old man, reported by the newspaper as Jiang Xiaoshan, sat down with his friends to watch the first matches of the 2012 European Football Championship. Because of the time difference between China and Eastern Europe, all matches were broadcast between 1 and 3 a.m. Jiang didn't sleep a minute to watch every single one. Every night. 11 nights in a row. During the day, he went to work. Friends described him as a healthy man, a former university football player, an ordinary young man. On the night of June 18, after Italy defeated Ireland, Jiang returned home at 5 a.m. He took a shower. Went to bed. And never woke up. Dr. Lu Zhiling from the emergency department of the local People's Hospital gave a statement to the newspaper. Jiang was healthy. But sleepless nights and lack of sleep weakened his immune system and provoked the deterioration of his condition. He wasn't in a lab. No one was monitoring him. No one was recording his deterioration hour by hour. His friends were shocked. They said he had led a relatively healthy lifestyle. 11 nights. 26 years old. Found dead. The immune system doesn't tolerate arguments. This is what really happens. Researchers consider the 3rd night a critical threshold. By the 3rd night, something happens in your brain that scientists only fully understood in 2019. Your glymphatic dishwasher has failed its cycle for the 3rd time in a row. Beta-Amyloid and another toxic protein called tau begin accumulating in measurable concentrations. A study published in the journal Nature found that even 1 night of complete sleep deprivation increases beta-amyloid accumulation by 5% in critical brain regions. 3 nights of partial sleep deprivation significantly worsens this. Your emotional regulation is also disrupted. The amygdala, your brain's threat detection center, becomes 60% more reactive to negative stimuli after 3 nights of short sleep. Matthew Walker, neuroscientist and author of Why We Sleep, describes this as the loss of the brain's rational inhibition mechanism. The prefrontal cortex can no longer adequately regulate the amygdala's responses. You become more irritable, more anxious, more reactive, and less able to recognize that this is happening to you. The people around you will notice it before you do. The deterioration on the 3rd night is invisible to the one experiencing it. That's what makes it so dangerous. Because when you can't recognize your own deterioration, you keep moving forward. You keep working. You keep performing. You keep telling yourself everything is fine. In the spring of 2009, this man was rehearsing for his comeback concert series at a major arena in Los Angeles. 50 concerts. The most anticipated concert series in a generation. He was 50 years old, preparing to perform at the level that had defined his entire life. But he had a problem that no amount of rehearsal could solve. He couldn't sleep. His personal physician administered a powerful surgical anesthetic intravenously every single night, attempting to induce a sleep-like state. Not rest. Not recovery. A chemical approximation of unconsciousness. A sleep expert from Harvard Medical School later testified at the wrongful death trial. His conclusion was precise and horrifying. The physician had administered the anesthetic for 60 consecutive nights. Experts estimated this man may have been the only person ever to go 2 full months without a single REM sleep cycle. The show's producers documented what they observed in his final weeks. He could no longer perform choreography he had known for decades. He forgot the words to songs he'd sung 10,000 times. He gradually lost weight. He became paranoid. He was seen talking to himself. The paramedic who arrived on the morning he died initially assumed he was attending to a hospice patient. He was 50 years old, at the peak of his career. His life was ruined, not by illness, not by violence, but by lack of sleep. 60 nights without REM sleep. But the cardiovascular system begins to fail much earlier. It begins on the 4th night. By the 4th night, your cardiovascular system is under significant strain. A large-scale study involving more than 500,000 people from 8 countries found that regularly sleeping less than 6 hours increases the risk of developing or dying from coronary heart disease by 48%. The mechanism lies in blood pressure. During normal sleep, your blood pressure naturally drops by 10 to 20%. Researchers call this the nocturnal dip, and it's essential for cardiovascular recovery. When sleep is interrupted, this dip in activity never occurs. Your heart and arteries don't get a night's rest. Night after night of missed dips in activity is like running an engine without letting it cool down. Memory consolidation is also impaired. Sleep isn't just rest. It's the period during which the brain transfers information from short-term to long-term storage. This process occurs almost entirely during rapid eye movement, REM, sleep, the phase that is most dramatically reduced when total sleep time falls below 6 hours. What you learned on day 4 is far less likely to remain accessible on day 14. You work, study, and solve problems using only a fraction of your true potential. Without realizing it. Most people interested in sleep deprivation believe it applies not to them, but to others. To people who are less disciplined, less resilient. To people who manage their time poorly. But there was one family for whom sleep deprivation wasn't a choice. For them, it was a death sentence. For over 200 years, one family in northern Italy had been dying in the same way. Family members reached middle age, healthy, capable, ordinary, and then gradually lost the ability to sleep. The symptoms always followed the same pattern: pinpoint pupils, excessive sweating, then insomnia, at first mild, then complete. Then dementia. Coma. Death. For generations, the cause of death was listed as nervous exhaustion or brain inflammation. No one connected the two. In 1983, a man known to researchers only as Silvano began to show the first symptoms. He was 53 years old. Unlike those who came before him, Silvano made a decision. He went to the University of Bologna's Sleep Institute and offered himself to science. Fully aware of what awaited him. He wanted to give researchers something they had never had before, a documented case. A living chronicle. Researchers monitored him during the final months of his life, recording his brain activity as his sleep-wake cycle completely disrupted. In July 1984, 4 months after being admitted to the clinic, Silvano fell into a coma. And he died. But what he left behind forever changed neuroscience. Researchers studying Silvano's brain discovered that the thalamus, the region that regulates the sleep-wake cycle, was riddled with tiny holes. Abnormal proteins had destroyed the cells responsible for initiating sleep. In 1986, the disease was named fatal familial insomnia. 150 years before Silvano arrived at this clinic, at least 30 members of his family had died from the same cause. All of them had passed away because of insomnia. Silvano donated his brain to science, so that one day scientists would understand the cause of his death. Researchers discovered in his thalamus the same system that is now under stress in your brain, on the 6th night. By the end of the first week, your body enters a state researchers describe as chronic physiological stress. Growth hormone production, which occurs almost exclusively during deep, slow-wave sleep, is severely suppressed. Growth hormone is responsible for cellular repair, muscle regeneration, and fat metabolism. Without it, your body cannot adequately repair damaged tissue. Inflammation increases. Your metabolism continues to slow. A University of Chicago study found that people who slept little lost 55% less fat than those who slept well, even on the same calorie-restricted diet. When sleep deprived, the body preferentially burns muscle rather than fat. Testosterone levels also drop significantly. A study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that 1 week of sleep deprivation reduced testosterone levels in young, healthy men by 10 to 15%. That's the hormonal equivalent of aging 10 to 15 years. In just 7 nights. Here's what most people are counting on, and why it won't save them. A landmark study from the University of Pennsylvania tracked participants during chronic sleep deprivation followed by extended restorative sleep. Afterward, participants felt better. They subjectively believed recovery was complete. But objective testing revealed a completely different picture. Their reaction time and cognitive abilities never fully returned to baseline, even after 3 full nights of restorative sleep. The damage from chronic sleep deprivation doesn't disappear over a long weekend. Beta-amyloid accumulation. Hormonal imbalances. Cardiovascular stress. Significant restoration of these parameters requires consistent, adequate sleep over several weeks. Science points to a specific set of methods that restore damaged sleep patterns. First, consolidate your wake time. Choose a time and stick to it, even on weekends. Your circadian rhythm is your biological clock. Inconsistency disrupts it. Second, lower the room temperature to 18 to 20 degrees Celsius, 66 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. A lower body temperature is necessary for deep sleep to begin. A warm room physically hinders this transition. Third, eliminate light exposure 90 minutes before bed. Light suppresses melatonin production and delays sleep onset. Blue light from screens is the most harmful. Fourth, don't lie in bed awake for more than 20 minutes. If sleep doesn't come, leave the room. Do something quiet in dim light. Return only when you feel truly sleepy. If you don't sleep in your bed, your brain will eventually associate the bed with wakefulness, and become accustomed to it. Fifth, get morning sunlight within 30 minutes of waking. Direct exposure to light stabilizes your circadian rhythm and significantly improves the quality of your sleep the following night. Sleep is not a passive state. It is the body's most active period of biological maintenance. All the systems we've discussed, your brain, immune system, hormones, heart, metabolism, are completely dependent on it. You can't cheat it. You can't circumvent it with supplements. You can't catch up on lost sleep over the weekend. The dishwasher should run every night. Let's go to start tonight. Dear viewer, you can help yourself and others by leaving your opinion on this material in the comments below. If this information resonated with you even slightly, please subscribe to the channel. And tell us how many hours you actually sleep on a typical night. I read every comment. Hit the like button and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss the next in-depth review.